Howdy, homesteaders. Today, we're going to have an unboxing. Yes, today we're going to do an unboxing and everything, and just so you know, it's something that I paid for, something I bought myself. It's not a review, just something that I'm excited to get that I got off the internet. But before we talk about that, I've been talking about we were going to share our testimony and how we believe the Lord has really been directing us over the past several years, and all the miraculous things that the Lord has been doing. And I figured I'd go ahead and make this video here to try to share some of that storyline with you. And, really you're kind of in anyone's life when you start up a vlog, and if anyone's really sharing any real details about their life, then you're really just getting into the middle of a story. Obviously, we didn't appear yesterday, you know what I mean? So everyone's got something that's ongoing, things that are ongoing, and that's the way we are. We are in a process, an ongoing process that's been going on for at least the past 3 to 4 years. About 4 years ago, give or take, I was actually living in an RV, and maybe at some point I'll do a video on my RV, maybe whenever I go to clean it up. Right now it's been our outdoor storage unit, so I've been using my RV as a place to store things in, so it's quite messy right now. But it was the RV that I lived in. I lived in it for about 3 years, and during that time, for about 1.5 years, I was traveling around the country preaching the gospel and living on very little. Okay, and then right about the time that the Lord was putting it on my heart to start planning on getting out of the RV and getting a place to live, like to rent a place somewhere, and I was really thinking about renting like a mobile home somewhere, because usually you can get a pretty decent deal on a mobile home rental and somewhere out in the country, and you get a lot more freedom in a situation like that than renting some apartment in town. So I was already had that on my heart and everything, and just to briefly share the testimony of our meeting each other and getting married. It was in 2013, and in that year, me and the other elders of my fellowship, we were just seeking the Lord and what the Lord's plan was for me. And, I knew that the Lord did want me to get married, but you don't just run out and just get married. You have to make sure that you marry the right person, the person that the Lord chooses. And I was waiting for the person that the Lord would choose for me. And so I was very diligently seeking and seeking the Lord's will. And something that the Lord had confirmed to me and to the other 2 pastors of our fellowship at that time is that I would be married before the end of the year, or I would at least know exactly who the person was going to be. And really that's what was on my heart, is I wasn't sure if I was going to actually be married by the end of the year, but I knew that I would actually know who the person was actually going to be. And they confirmed that. The Lord individually, whenever I brought it up to them, they're like, well, the Lord's already, this is what the Lord said to me, and this is what the Lord said to me, and they both said that, and our stories were somewhat different, but very, very similar, very, very similar. So that really gave me some confirmation. We met on Facebook, and we had a courtship, and maybe we'll do another video sharing that testimony, because that could really get into a long testimony. But anyway, by December, our courtship had started between me and my wife. And, that was just a confirmation, I thought, wow, the Lord really spoke to us. And I was really excited about that. I just knew that the Lord had chosen her for me, you know. And at this time, I was still living in my RV, right? So that's where we're back to. And whenever we ended up getting married, I was able to have a place to move into right on time because I was already looking ahead of time. And even before she came to Kentucky for the courtship process, even before that, I was already looking for a place. So by the time that I needed a place, I already had it. So it was just the Lord's perfect timing. And that was just the beginning, right? So then after we got married, I took my wife on an outreach to Salt Lake City, Utah, to witness to the Mormons and to share the gospel with them. And could you share a little bit about that experience, honey? What did you think about that overall?
Well, Tracy had been living in an RV, and before it had been parked when we got were courting and got married, and he had already been settled somewhere at this fellowship at the fellowship. But before that, he was out driving all over the United States street preaching the gospel, and then he was already used to relying on the Lord to just make a way for things to happen, to just make a way. The Lord put on his heart to go somewhere to preach the gospel, and he'd have no money, and then it would just all come together perfectly in God's timing. And so I never experienced that, and I was new coming to the Lord, only a couple years when he asked me to court when we got married, and so I wasn't used to that, relying on God for just relying on him. You know, he tells you to do something, somewhere to go, and we just go in faith, and he makes a way. And so anyways, Utah, we left for Utah, and the day before we left, we only had $150, and we had just gotten it that day. We'd just gotten it that day, and that the day that he got the money, I thought $150. There's no way we're going to be driving to Utah from Kentucky and back again on $150.
We took a detour to Oklahoma.
Yes.
And Tulsa, Oklahoma area.
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, so I asked him. I said, "Please go pray and ask the Lord one more time before we leave in the morning, that if he really wants us to go to the Mormons, because we had no money. $150 is no money to me to get us through all that." So he did, and the Lord said he still wanted us to go, and we went, and we had just enough money to get to Tulsa, and where we stayed with a family. And from there, the Lord made a way to, the night before we were ready to leave that family to go on to the next journey, God gave us the money again the night before we were getting ready to leave. And then we made it to the next place, which was Cheyenne, Wyoming, to stay in a hotel before we left from there to drive all the way to Utah.
We didn't have any money there either.
And we had just enough money to pay for the hotel.
And pizza.
And
now tell them what you said whenever I was ordering pizza. And I was ordering pizza, and then you said...
We had $20 left. That was it.
And I was using it to order pizza.
And I said, "Why are you getting pizza? We'll just go to the grocery store and just get some lunch meat or something. We only have $20 left." And he said, "Well, $20 isn't going to get us to Utah anyways, so we might as well eat." He felt like the Lord wanted us to have something good to eat.
Something halfway nice, right?
Yeah. And so we ate pizza, and before we went to sleep, we were relaxing in the hotel room, and next thing we know, it was through PayPal each time, so your laptop would ding, and there it was. It was put into his PayPal account, and somebody would donate, and we would have enough money to go the next leg of the journey.
Which was Salt Lake City, Utah, and also had enough money to pay for the hotel room when we got there. But then again, after making all those expenses, we were pretty much broke again.
He tells me the night before it's time to go, we have no money.
We didn't.
We had no money. We had spent it eating with the brothers and sisters after the fellowship was after the outreach was over. After the preaching was over, we had dinner with them, and he had spent it all on the dinner.
And gas.
And gas, yes, from getting back and forth. But anyways, there's a lot of expense.
There's a lot of expenses
There
involved
was a
in
lot of
preaching.
expense in preaching. There is. So anyways, so we had no money. And every time before we went to bed, I felt like on my heart it was like the Lord making it so that we wouldn't worry, so that we could sleep. We wouldn't worry about the money and what would happen in the morning. So every night before we went to bed, right about an hour or so before we went to sleep, it would the money would we would just somehow get the money.
It'd be enough to make it for the next leg of the journey.
It wasn't. None of it was enough to make it all the way home.
Yeah, even when we were coming back, it wasn't all the way home. It was just however much money we needed for the drive that day.
And then we made
Then we'd stay at a hotel room, and then we'd be broke again.
Lincoln, Nebraska was the last place.
Yeah, Lincoln, Nebraska was the last place we stayed on the way home.
Yep.
And then we had to spend the night there.
I had no money.
Right then,
No money.
Before we went to bed, we had enough money to make it the rest of the way.
Yep, before we went to sleep again.
So the Lord was always on time.
Always. Always on time.
Really, I believe...
Not too soon.
That's things like that are just... It's a test of our faith, because the Lord wants us to trust in Him. And, if you trust in the Lord and you're walking in the Lord's will, and the Lord's telling you to do something, then the Lord will make a way. The Lord does not command without giving also the ability to carry it out. So that's the thing with that. I just want to share that real quick, because there's a lot more information to share.
Okay.
But I just wanted to share that story to kind of give you a framework of a lot of ways how God works with things. And around that time, after all of these outreaches and stuff, the Lord was speaking to me in prayer when I was praying to the Lord. And, prayer isn't just a one-way conversation. If your prayer is a one-way conversation, then, there's something wrong. God is a person, three persons, one God, and we are people. When you have a conversation with someone, it's a two-way conversation. It isn't just me talking to my wife and her never responding. It doesn't work that way. So whenever I was praying, the Lord spoke to me in prayer. The Lord basically told me that He was going to do a financial miracle, and I desperately needed one because I had all kinds of debt. And I still do. I still have a pretty good sizable amount of debt, even now. And my credit was shot. And this is from whenever I was living as a sinner before I came back to the Lord. I was living a riotous life, and I ruined my credit. I ran up all my debts, and just made a whole mess financially of my whole life. And, a lot of times that's what people do when they're living in sin. Not always, but in my case, that's what I did. Okay? So the Lord was letting me know that He was going to do a financial miracle in my life to alleviate all this damage that I had done. But even though the Lord told me that, I was kind of thinking to myself that, this damage was done by me. It was my fault. And I was going to have to do something. I was going to have to do something in order for this to work. It wasn't just going to be some miracle that had nothing to do with me. I would have to be involved. I would have to be doing a lot of work in order for this to happen, because I'm the one that made the mess. So in a sense, I had to be the one that helped clean it up. I knew that there was some work involved on my part, but I didn't know what. Right. So for the past 3 years or so, I was just guessing. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's this. And then, you kind of get to a point eventually, it's like, you know what? I'm wasting my time guessing. I'm just going to wait and see what the Lord's going to do. Just keep my eyes open and do my part when it's required. And that's what I came to. And just really crazy how the whole thing happened. Basically, it started with my student loans. I have a lot of student loans when I went to college. And I had actually played the student loan game. I don't know if anybody else knows about this, but you play the deferment, forbearance, deferment, forbearance, deferment, forbearance. And I was playing the system just right where I wasn't making any payments whatsoever. But the consequence of that is your student loan starts to snowball bigger, 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 bigger. And that's what was happening. Then I got to the point where I just stopped playing that game and walked away from it, and then my student loans went to default status. So that's where the story begins, is with that. Now, there's all kinds of other debts I had to deal with too, but that's like the starting point. And I was, you get a situation like that, it's like, man, it's hopeless. It's like a mountain you can't climb. It's so much damage. I'll never be able to fix it in my lifetime. Why even bother? Why even try? But as a Christian, I can't have that attitude. The Bible says that the wicked borrow and do not repay. And I did not want to be that way. I did not want to be the ones that would borrow and had no intention of ever repaying. So whatever happened, I needed to do something to try to pay off this debt. So I was making phone calls, checking around. People gave me some information that I could go on. And basically at the time what happened is I ended up being without work, not having anywhere to work. I didn't have a job anywhere. There are some circumstances around that, but I didn't have a job. I didn't have no money coming in. And I was able to get through to these people about my student loans, and I let them know. I said, you know what, I want to pay off these student loans. I don't know what I can do. I don't have a job right now, but I'm willing to do whatever is necessary. I really want to pay this off. Is there any way I could fix this? And then they let me know that my loans are in default status, and the first step to doing anything is to restore the loans to get them out of default status. And because I didn't have a job at the time, it turned out that I was able to pay $5 a month for 9 months. And then that was enough to get it out of default status. And not only that, but each one of those $5 payments was counting as a paid on time payment. Now that come in important later on in the story, but it counted as a paid on time payment for 9 months on that $5. And I did a $5 automatic withdrawal from my PayPal account, and that's how I paid it for 9 months. So I made sure that I would not miss a payment, and it was all done automatically, $5 a month. And it was like a week or so after that, I got a job, and then I called them and said, look, I got a job now. Do I have to change anything? They said, no. You set that up when you didn't have a job, and it's in process. You don't have to make any changes. You're good to go. I was like, I couldn't hardly believe it. I said, wow, $5 a month, I'm good to go, even though I have a job? And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's set up. You're good to go. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's something. So I was pretty happy about that. And then, after the 9 months was up, the loan was restored, and they removed $10,000 from what I owed. They removed $10,000 from what I owed. I didn't ask for it. They just did it. And I was like, wow. Right? So that was pretty crazy. And then the next major thing that happened was my other student loan. I had a smaller student loan when I got my CompTIA certification as a Network Plus computer guy, computer networking. I got a certificate in that. So I owed, I think what it was, like $1,500 or so, like either $1,500 or $1,800. I can't remember exact the amount. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 or $1,800.
You only had to pay $1,500.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
It was $9,000.
Yeah, it was $9,000. I'm sorry. Thank you, honey. I'm not even remembering this right. It's my life. I'm not remembering it right. So it was a $9,000 debt.
They found
Right.
us.
And they called me. I thought it was a telemarketer, and I was talking to them and everything. And at first I thought it was a telemarketer, and then they said, well, if you're willing to work with us, we will make a deal with you. And I'm like, okay, kind of suspicious. And they said, if you pay us $500 a month for 3 months and you don't miss a payment, then we'll call it paid in full. So then I prayed about it, and the Lord let me know that this was real. Go ahead and do this. So in prayer, I decided to go ahead and do it. So I agreed. I set up the thing, and I paid them. And it wasn't easy. I actually had a pay cut. I wasn't making as much money as I was before.
We didn't have the money.
Yeah, we didn't really have the money, and I was actually juggling with how we were going to eat. What kind of food,
We ended up eating out of the freezer what we had left.
Yeah, what we had left in the freezer and the cupboards and stuff, and I had to get really creative on putting meals together.
Yeah, for 3 months we didn't buy no groceries.
Right, and so anyway, we did that. We didn't buy any groceries for 3 months, but we paid the $500 for 3 months, and we made those payments on time, and they canceled the debt. They called it paid in full after the $1,500. So the rest of the $9,000 was erased.
It was God's hand.
Right. So
Wow.
that was a miracle. And then, I also had some troubles with the IRS. Right? Trouble with the IRS. And this was because of a business that I tried to start years and years and years ago. I tried to start a computer business of selling computer parts. And it didn't take me long to figure out that was not a good business to get into. It really wasn't. The people who were telling me that they were going to be my distributor were promising me things, but they didn't deliver. So I got my business license. I looked into getting a distributor. The distributors were showing me prices that were higher than the prices I could get off eBay. I was like, well, how am I going to make any money doing this? If I can't even get it as cheap as the people are selling it on eBay, I'm not going to be able to make any money selling computer parts, because I was into computers. I know that if you don't see the prices you like, you look on eBay, if you see a better price, you buy the cheaper price. You don't buy from these people, you buy the cheaper price. And that's the way a lot of computer people are. I'm like, I'm not going to make any money doing this. So the business never went anywhere. But I never filled out my paperwork. And that's my downfall with that. I was living as a sinner at the time, and I didn't fill out my paperwork. I just kind of, blew it off and forget about it. I'm not going to do anything with it. And I neglected the paperwork. And they assessed tax against me on my business because I did not turn my paperwork in every quarter like I was supposed to. And all I had to do was fill out my paperwork and show that I made no money, which I didn't. I didn't make any money. Each quarter I made no money. I was going to go in business. It never took place. It never got anywhere, As soon as I got my license, as soon as I checked with distributors, and I did the math, I said, this is impossible. I gave up, walked away, never made any money in that business. So all I had to do is put in there that the business was defunct and never made any money. I just had to close it out, do the paperwork to close it out, but I neglected that. So this money, it snowballed up, and it was like about an $8,000 debt of taxes for the IRS on a business that I never made any money on. So it seemed like a hopeless situation. I'm thinking, the IRS, you deal with them, and they say you owe them money. You better pay them. You better pay them all the money you owe them, and they're not going to deal with you. They're just going to say, give us our money. And that was my impression for years and years and years. And I don't know, maybe they are like that sometimes. I don't know. But whenever I, change my attitude, and it's like, no, I'm going to deal with this. Even if I don't think I owe the money, if they say I owe, I owe. And I need to pay them whether I agree with owing or not. So I went in there, so I'm not going to fight with them. I'm not going to give them a hassle. I'm not going to give them a hard time. I'm going to go in there with a willing heart of wanting to deal with this debt and pay for it. Even, every other thought aside, they say I owe them $8,000. I need to make good on that the best I can. So I made some phone calls, and it's just a long story there, all the phone calls, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was asking questions, and then they give me some information, and I go back and I ask them more questions. They give me information, and I was calling back and forth. And then one time I called, and the guy said, "How do you have all this information?"
How did you know all this?
"Yeah, how did you know all this stuff?" And I was like, "Well, I've been calling for the past 3 or 4 months now, and I really just want to, take care of it. I'm not playing games. I want to find out what do I need to do to get this taken care
The
of."
last person told you all that.
And he said, "Well, you're not supposed to have all this information. I don't know how you got all this information. You're supposed to get this special code that you get from the Attorney General's office." And I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Well, can you give me a point of contact and who I need to contact to get that number?" And they gave me the contact. I called them and told them my situation, proved to them who I was. And then whenever I did all that, they gave me a special code. And then I called the IRS and I gave them that code, and then they were legally able to help me. So really, all that help I was getting, I think, was from the Lord, because He said, that should never have been possible. That's what that IRS guy said.
To get as far.
To get as far as I got.
Yeah, it should have took you a long time to get that far.
No, and I should have had that code first. I went through the wrong channels because I didn't know what I was doing.
That's
right. So anyway, the Lord really worked that out. And I look back and I was like, man, that's just crazy. And then after I gave him that code, and I think he gave me a straight number straight to his desk. So then I dealt with that guy, I think, with the rest of the time. And then I kept calling back, and I found out that all I had to do was fill out the paperwork that I neglected all those years ago and send it in. And if I send in all the paperwork that I needed to send in, that he told me what dates of what years I had to fill out the paperwork for, and I filled out all the information, which was zero. I didn't make any money. And I filled it out just like he told me to, and I sent it in. And then after I sent it in, they forgave all the debt.
Everything.
The IRS forgave all the debt. All I had to do was pay for the court costs, which came out to, it was $800.
Was it $8?
Yeah, $800 altogether. It was, each one was considered a different case.
Okay.
So there was like 14 different cases, I think, and all of it came up to like $800 in court costs. So I paid the $800 in court costs, and then the rest of the IRS debt was completely erased. The IRS forgave me, and I think that's a miracle, right? And then, this is happening over several years, right? All these things I'm telling you. And then, some things were going on, and a close friend of ours who we were renting from, this place that we're in right now, just about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we were living in this mobile home, and we were just paying rent to a friend of ours who, we were in fellowship with, another pastor, and he was renting this place to us, and just a really close brother in the Lord, and he gave us a piece of land that was like 7.5 acres of land. He just gave to us because the Lord just put it on his heart to gift that to us, and then he needed to sell this property, so we had to move. So we were looking at buying a house maybe because my credit was fixed. Because now going back to the student loan, all those $5 a month payments counted as on-time payments, and that actually helped to repair my credit. And then once I had that in place, and I was making my payments on time after it was restored,
and that you paid off the other.
And the other one got erased, and the tax liens were removed.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, my credit score went from like a 500 up to like a 750 within like a month. It
was amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like, wow, now I have a 750 cutting score. I can go buy a house. And we were looking to buy a house and everything, and he's looking to sell this property, and there was another property, 0.6 acres. He was wanting to sell a big 5-bedroom house.
We tried to get a loan on this, but
we tried to get a loan on this place, but because it was a single wide and not a double wide, and it's not on a secure foundation, it's just on blocks with the underpinning around it, no bank around here would finance it. And I tried all the combinations I could, it just wouldn't happen. So we had to move. So then my close brother in the Lord. He, like I said, he needed to sell this place. He needed to sell the other place. And he worked out a deal with me to where I was able to buy that place and this place together in one deal. And that was just phenomenal how that happened. And the credit was good enough to do it. I was making enough money at the job I was working. I was working in a factory, making enough money to afford the payments and everything just fell into place. And I was able to buy both these properties. And that's a lot of information, and I don't know if you really followed everything, but I'm just trying to recollect it the best I can. But that's where we are right now. Now, a lot of the other videos that you've seen have been me at the other property, and we were living there, and for quite a while. And now we're transitioning over here, and we're going to be putting that place up for sale. And be selling that place. And the way it's all working out is if we're able to sell that other house, then not only will I be debt free, right? I'll actually own this property free and clear. So I'll have this place free and clear with zero debt after all of this, right? And this is a journey that started about 4.5 years ago. So in 4.5 years, I went from someone with miserable credit, tax liens from the IRS. I was unable to hold a regular job. I had to get jobs through temp services because if I got a job anywhere else, they were going to garnish my wages. I was living a miserable life at that time, financially speaking, and living in an RV, just doing what I can, just trying to survive with all these problems. And I went from that to now it's all going to be erased. And not only that, I'm going to have a property paid off free and clear, all within about 4.5 years. So that is the miracle, the financial miracle that God told me about all those years ago. And I couldn't see from that vantage point exactly how it was going to turn out. But now that I'm close to the end of it, now I can see the end. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I can see it and understand it and comprehend it. And I see all the little steps along the way that the Lord had done, and it's just amazing.
And He gave you a wife.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah, of course, we're married happily. And there's other testimonies we could share. I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. And after all this talking, I almost forgot that we're going to do an unboxing. Now, my wife doesn't know what's in here, just so you know. You have the box cutting opening tool?
I had it. I had handed it to you. I got another one.
Okay. So she's going to get the box opening tool that we like to use and do the unboxing. Okay, and like I said, I know what's in there.
I don't.
Yeah, but we do this a lot, and sometimes it's a big deal. Like whenever I got your tablet, that was a big deal. And sometimes it's not a big deal. Sometimes I make a big deal out of it, and it just turns out to be like, like.
Is this a big deal, honey?
What's that?
Is this a big deal?
Is this a big deal? I guess we'll find out. And sometimes it turns out to be something ordinary. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see if this is a big deal or not.
He likes to surprise me.
Yeah, I like surprising my wife. It brings me joy, and I like to see surprise and all this other stuff. I like the anticipation. It's like, ooh, what could be inside of the box? What could be in there? It's a big box. Look at that. This is, I don't know if you can see this real good, but
when he was working a job where he went to work every day, he'd say, "Something's coming in the mail tomorrow. Don't open it."
That's because I wanted to be there
for
the moment.
So I would bring it in the house, and it would be sitting there in the living room all day long until he got there.
Right. Let's go a little bit right there. All right. The box cutting opening tool. Let's see here.
Thank you, dear.
Here's another one here. Here's my opening tool. I don't need that anymore. What is it?
Yay! I'm glad you got that.
This is Bob's Pallet Buster. It's Bob's pallet busting tool. It's got these little rotation things right here. And it's for breaking apart and busting open pallets. Yeah, Jasper is even interested. What do you think, Jasper? What do you think about that?
I've been wanting him to get this for a while.
So now we have a pallet busting tool. A pallet busting tool. So we can take our pallets that we have. We have a pretty good source for getting free pallets. Actually, I have several sources for getting free pallets that we don't have to pay any money for. We just have to go pick them up, and we have to call them, let them know that we're coming, and say, hey, you got any free pallets for us? So, oh, yeah, well, we do, and when can you come? And we set up a date, we go pick them up, we bring the pallets back, and then boom, we got free wood to use.
One time we went, they had so many we couldn't even haul them all.
And there's several methods you can do, and this is one of the methods, is they use a pallet buster. And we're going to use this and see how that goes. We've seen other people using this particular one, and it seemed to work out very good for them. Very good for them. So
it didn't split hardly no boards.
Right. It just pops them apart, and it's really good. The only downfall you have to do is you have to knock the nails out of the boards afterwards. But you know, this is, like I said, one way to bust open a pallet. It's supposed to be very quick, very easy. Another way is to use a reciprocating saw with a metal blade on it, metal cutting blade on it, and I do have one of those as one of the tools that I bought. So now I have two methods for breaking up pallets to make them usable for different wood projects that we're hoping to do. So there we go, honey. We got a Bob's from Bob's Industrial Supply, Bob's Pallet Buster. So it looks like it's very well made, very, very heavy metal.
Oh, really good heavy
yeah.
rivets. Yeah.
I used to do a little bit of welding, and I can see that these weld jobs look pretty good. Looks like pretty good solid welding on there. And hopefully it'll last us a really long time.
You like it, Jasper?
Yeah, you like our pallet buster, Jasper? It's yellow.
You like it?
I think Jasper likes it. All right, so I hope this video has been a blessing to you. And like I said, this story is not over. We still have to sell that property over there, and we're in the process of cleaning it up and getting all of our stuff out and getting it staged and making it look nice and beautiful for the next people who had come to buy it. And, you know, if you would, you know, join us in prayer on us being able to quickly sell that place and be out of that debt, and also help to cancel out all this other debt that I have left. I still have a pretty sizable debt left over, but if I sell this place, it should take care of all of that. So, and you know, starting any homestead, one of the number one things that stops people from doing any homesteading is debt. It's like, well, how can I quit my job if I have to pay all of these bills? I got to pay my mortgage. I got to pay this. I got to pay that. I got all these bills. So I got to make money. You know. So you have to shoot for that $18 an hour job, and you have to try to do your best and just keep your head above water and all of those things. How can I think about you know, milking goats, or how can I think about you know, having chickens and rabbits and gardening and all that stuff? I don't have time for all that. I come home from work and I'm beat. I'm spent. I'm done. And you know, that's how I was. And you know, you just seem like there's no way out. But if there's a way that you can get rid of your debt, right? If you can get rid of your debt somehow, and it's just about making a plan. Like me, it seemed hopeless. I didn't think it was going to happen. But you have to first have the right attitude. And the right attitude is, you know what, I'm just going to make good on this. I'm going to contact the people, and I'm going to do whatever I can to satisfy this debt. And you might be surprised, they might volunteer help for you. And they might volunteer things that you never knew about, and things that could help you down that path. And, if you know the Lord, certainly the Lord can help you. But you have to have the right attitude. You have to have a willing heart to make it right. And that's what I had. And if you have a willing heart to make it right, and you put forth the effort of making the phone calls and doing what you need to do, you never know what could happen. And I'm just hoping this will encourage you that no matter how hopeless your situation seems to be, there always is a way out. And the way out might not be easy, but there's a way out that will work. And, the Bible says, Jesus says about himself that I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes unto the Father but by me. And, obviously that's talking about our relationship with God. We have to go through the door, go through Jesus Christ to have any kind of a relationship with God. But also God cares about his children. And God cares about our problems, our issues, and he just wants us to rely upon him. And if we do that, amazing things could happen. But it doesn't mean that there isn't any work required of us. Of course, there's things that's going to be required on our end as well. And if we do what's required, and we do it with the right heart and the right attitude, following the Lord, he can lead us through any tough situation. So I hope this has been an encouragement, and praise the Lord.